tonight as the host, I'm going to try to endeavor to put together some more structure to these conference calls. Basically, what I feel is we are tapping into one of the most powerful aspects of sacred writings, which is the Sermon on the Mount of the Beatitudes, and endeavoring to relate that back, which we will, to our vision boards, to whatever each one of us are creating for the ideal life for ourselves as it relates to the power of collective consciousness. And so I would appreciate it if you guys are by your computer. I know, Tim, you're on the road, but Vlad and Alexis and Ron, are you available? Are you at your computers?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's good. That's good, because I'm going to try to lay some groundwork or structure. I may talk most of this hour tonight, but then what we'll do after that, the next conference call, then we'll take this material and see and have exchange of all of us to see how we can put it together to be for the most advantage of staying focused on our objective together. And first thing we want to do is we want to go through another visualization so we begin to feel that energy flowing with the group. And if you're at your computer, I really like the way Tim sent us this email this afternoon. So if you can go into your email, and you should have a email from Tim where it says tonight. And you got to let me know when you're there.
Okay, hold on a sec.
Yeah, and again now, this is an open dialogue because let me just explain another little thing where I'm coming from, because I feel this is so important. For a long while, and I use my dad as an example a lot, and I also use Mr. Charleston of the Research Foundation as examples. And I remember when I first got out of college, my dad put my desk right next to his. And he says, now I'm going to teach you how to run a business. You got to unlearn almost everything you learned in college. But then he would bring his top people in every Monday morning, and he'd tell them what he expected of them. And he'd go around to them. He said, now you got it, you got it, you got it. And all of them would say, yep, got it. And I said, Dad, they don't have the foggiest idea what you're trying to tell them. Oh, yes, they all know. And then when my dad would leave, they'd come back to me and they said, what does your dad want me to do? And that's what we want to do, because we're working here with a very powerful thing, and that's the power of collective consciousness. But we have to be really sure that we're all on the same page. And so we have to be just so open with each other and say, I don't understand what you're saying, or I'm not following you, so that we can constantly be sure that we are totally in accord with what we're doing together. So, did you find his email?
I've got it.
Yeah.
I'm good. Tim's good.
Vlad, Ron?
Yeah. When I click on the link, though, any of the links that are provided in his email.
Okay. Well, then go into that link. And
there's a document.
And as you go into that link, I'm going to suggest that Tim does this for us for every one of our sessions coming up, because I feel that it's important that we have a feel for that beatitude and the essence of the power of that beatitude prior to our Sunday evening calls, so that then we can build on that power together. And so if Tim sends us, like he's done here, the visualization, and then the discussion that Tim and I had that is also applicable to that beatitude as it relates to the fulfillment of our visions as on the vision board, so we stay focused, as it relates to the journaling and as it relates to the forum. And I hope you guys have some paper and pencil there too tonight, because I'd like to have you take notes as I'm talking, so that next time we can discuss any questions you might have concerning what we're together endeavoring. I feel we're endeavoring to do. And so tonight we will be working with.
Say, Dean, I'm so sorry. This is Vlad. For just one second, I have a request. Could we get this email ahead of time? Say, like, I mean, it would be ideal if we could get it like on a Friday or something. Because, like, I was traveling this weekend. I got home like at 6 o'clock. I didn't see this. I didn't have a chance to read, and I completely forgot I had to do the visualization. But it would have been a nice reminder if the email comes out a little bit earlier. Could that be arranged?
Tim?
Yeah, we'll do our best. Absolutely.
Okay. Could we do it like by a Friday so that like if people travel on the weekend, we could do it beforehand?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much. Thanks. Sorry, sorry about the interruption.
No, and that's great, Vlad. That's what I want now. I want input here as we're putting this together.
Yep, absolutely. That would work. That would be great. Thanks so much.
So then we have this. Now we can stay right with it, but later on we're going to go into the website itself. But to begin with, let's just put your phones on mute and click on the visualization and listen to the first visualization. And Bobby will be doing this one. And then when you are through, then come on back with us.
Sit in a comfortable upright position with your back straight. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath and just totally relax. Now imagine yourself lying comfortably on a beach. It's a beautiful sunny day. Feel the pleasant rays of the sun bathing your entire body. You can see the mountains in the distant background, and you see that it's raining in the mountains. There now appears a beautiful rainbow in the sky. It's so beautiful that you want to touch it. Your body is now becoming very light, and it becomes lighter and lighter, and you find yourself floating toward the rainbow. You're now entering the rainbow. The rays here are a brilliant red. Now you're moving into orange, soft, fluffy orange. The orange is now turning into yellow, a beautiful, soft yellow. And now the yellow is becoming green, a restful green. Now you're moving into blue, a calming, clear blue. Now the blue turns into a very bright indigo. The indigo is gradually becoming violet. You can now see that all the colors are contained within a brilliant white light. You're in this brilliant white light, and the light is also within you. You're filled with the light and all the colors of the light. The light is very healing and revitalizing. Now you see the earth below and become aware that everything that is there is created from this light. This light is energy, and you can direct it to create whatever you want. You know that you will soon be returning to your beautiful beach, but while you're here, clearly understanding that you're creating your life, let's create an ideal self-image. Think about how you look. Remember, you're creating your ideal appearance. Now consider how you feel. Make it the way you want it to be. How do others respond to you? It's your call. How do you want it to be? Now think of any other aspects you want to consider in creating this ideal self. Now feel how it feels to be this ideal self. You want to be sure this ideal self-image is registered in the subconscious. So speak directly to the subconscious and say in your mind, subconscious, register this ideal self-image under my name. Then say your name. Should I lose it and want to recall it, I can just say my name and this ideal self-image will immediately reappear. Now to reinforce this in the subconscious, simply say your name and become this ideal self-image. You now find yourself back on the beach, totally relaxed, refreshed, and revitalized. You're now ready to return from this adventure. At your own speed, open your eyes and return to outer consciousness.
Okay, I'm back.
I'm back.
Hey,
Tim's back.
Tim, Alexis.
Yep, I'm here too. This is Glenn.
And this is Ron.
I'm glad we're all back. Just feeling that isn't it wonderful to know, from Minneapolis to Washington to Connecticut, and still we can just feel that energy together.
True, good point.
Yeah, the power of collective consciousness. And that's what we're tapping into. The next thing I would like to call your attention, because it had a little impact on both Bobby and I this week. Bobby received a email that said it was from Tim, and it said this is an amazing something or other. It said just click here, and she clicked on it, and it brought my vision board up on Chakronicity. And we both listened to it, and we said, wow, what a beautiful vision board. As we say every time we look at any one of the vision boards that Tim put together. And then I thought, what a wonderful way if you can just, then I noticed underneath it said I could email it to anybody I wanted to. And so, I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but on just the one that's on the screen now, on Chakronicity, where Bobby had the relaxation visualization, you see right below it where it says share the video?
Yes.
I never saw that before, Tim. And so I immediately thought of my brother. And I thought, wow, man, all I have to do is just click on that and I'll send it to my brother. So I clicked on it, and a nice little window came up. I don't know if you guys have used yourself, but it was so neat. And so I clicked on it, and a little screen came up, and it said email. And so I went into my address book on computer, and I tried to transfer my brother's address over into that little box. But for some reason, I couldn't do that. So then I wrote his address down, his email address, and then I typed it in. And it was so simple just to send it to him that way. However, then I thought, I would like to send this to everyone on in my address book. And I don't know their addresses. I'd like to be able to transfer it from my address book into this little send box with a little comment. So then what I did to experience personally is I just took the one that Bobby got, and I just forwarded it. And then when I said forward it, then I could just hit my brother's, his name is Jim. I hit J, and bingo, it gives us a list of who you want to send it to. And I said to Jim, and he got it without me having to do anything other than just click here, and he got it. And so I thought, because what we're endeavoring to do together is we're endeavoring to now not only the support that we have for each other in understanding the process and the principles, but also have supporters. And what a nice and easy way it is to then share these beautiful vision boards and with other people that are on our address books or whatever. Any thoughts on that? This came to us because Tim, you've done such a wonderful, wonderful job on this whole Chakronicity website.
Thank you, Dean.
Well, plus there is, Tim added the features of pretty much all the major media groups or sites to share it with or post a link to it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and you know, I've been here since day one on this, but I never saw that feature, and it really impressed me. Because now it's so easy for me to share. I can share with everybody just by a click of the mouse, basically. Okay, now we are in Chakronicity, right? So if you scroll up to Spiritual Insights, and let me know when you're there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Everybody there yet? Or working on
Yep,
it?
yep, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, just keep letting me know when you're there because I'm going to work through there. You see, now the first it says the Spiritual Insight Broadcast Series. Now, what I'd like to suggest for the 7 of us, actually, there's 8 of us, Bobby and myself and Jill, that we have a 3-ring notebook. And in that 3-ring notebook, we actually print out the beatitude that we're working with. So we have it in front of us most all the time as it relates to what we're endeavoring to do as a collective consciousness, as it relates to what I call the Christ consciousness. But the reason I'm going through this again now is because I have to be sure that we're all on the same page, okay? So now with that first paragraph where it says, Welcome to Spiritual Insight section of Chakronicity, if you go all the way down to the end of that paragraph, you say where it says click here.
Yes.
Click on that here, if you will. And let me know when it comes up.
I've got it.
Yeah, you know with me, Dean. I'm just listening as you go along.
Yeah, I know you're listening, Kim, but you have it. But for the rest of us, and I'd like to, and I'm glad this is being recorded so B can do it also. Let me know when it comes up, guys. It should say a whole new understanding of the Beatitudes.
Yep, we see it, Dean. Go ahead, yep.
Pardon?
Yeah, we all have it up
Okay,
and running.
Let me know that you got it.
Yep, we have it, yep.
Okay, a whole new understanding of the Beatitudes. Now, you should print this out, like I say, and put it in the front of your 3-ring binder. But for now, I'm just going to read it, and you guys follow with me. First, we have the 10 Commandments. Because the reason I'm reading this now, because I want to be sure now we are on the same page together, guys. First, we have the 10 Commandments offered to us through Moses, which gave us basic laws of nature to live by. Then, 1,500 years or so later, Jesus brought us the Beatitudes through this Sermon on the Mount. These Beatitudes enhance the metaphysical principles contained within the 10 Commandments. The religious leaders of Jesus' day, the scribes and the Pharisees, rebuked Jesus, saying, You are destroying the Mosaic law, the 10 Commandments. However, Jesus' response was that the Beatitudes fulfill the Mosaic law. In the Bible, Matthew 5:17, we read how Jesus handled this rebuke. He said, I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Jesus builds the Beatitudes with bold statements of how law, statements that vibrate with a living principle so powerful that when he had finished, the people were astonished. These Beatitudes, when understood, lead us to engage a whole new way of life. This session, I will present this study of the Beatitudes through 7 topics as they relate to the term Christ consciousness. My goal is to reinforce that we are in fact created in the image and likeness of the living God. Each of us has the capability of demonstrating the Christ consciousness just as Jesus did. I will describe the metaphysical content of the Beatitudes in a way that I am convinced Jesus wanted them to be understood. Key words will be translated directly from the original Aramaic to English based on the work of George Lamsa, and his bibliography can be found in the Spiritual Insight Workbook, which is on the site, Tim's site. If what I offer touches you, if it stirs in you the desire to engage this inspired approach to life, then I encourage you to share with you what you see, feel, perceive with others through the forum. Now this is important, through the forum, not through the journal, but through the forum. Collectively, we offer each other a greater opportunity to explore our potential, along with the most effective way to experience that potential within the living experience. It's all good. Then, continuing, we have that key term, and this is what I really want you guys to give some in-depth thought to, because when Jesus said, you can do the things that I do and even greater things, he was referring to the state of consciousness that he had achieved, which is we call the Christ consciousness, which is called different things in different sacred writings. It could be called unity consciousness or God consciousness or Christ consciousness or self-actualization. But for me, working with the Beatitudes now, if we can have a collective thought and call it the Christ consciousness. And this, in my in-depth study, is the definition of the term Christ consciousness. In fact, when Jesus said to his own disciples, who do men say that I am? Some said, well, some say you're reincarnated Elisha. Some say you're reincarnated Joshua. Jesus said, but who do you say I am? And Peter said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Now that's exactly what we all are collectively. We are manifesting through the image and likeness this Christ consciousness of the living God and of the living principles of perfection. And so the Christ consciousness defined is, as I'm reading again, is the consciousness of perfection and perfection only. Jesus did not see sin. He did not see disease. He did not see death. He was able to rise above all that. He was able to transcend. Christ consciousness, the consciousness, awareness of perfection, as we read in the Bible, in the beginning, God, and God is love, created everything, and everything God created is perfect. And God created us in the image and likeness of this perfection. Jesus demonstrated the ability to maintain this state of consciousness, which he considered to be his purpose in life. Christ consciousness means to go beyond the ego-based mind. Christ consciousness, in today's terminology, is the superconscious in the field of psychology and psychiatry. Christ consciousness goes beyond intellectualism. You can't figure it out. It's a feeling. It's a knowingness. Christ consciousness transcends and brings us into our spiritual being. Now, the 7 topics covered within this series of the Beatitudes, we will discern the difference between the intellect and the transcendent. That was the first Beatitude. The one we'll be working tonight and have been working with this week is discovering the spontaneity of the Christ consciousness versus the repetition of this ordinary mind with all its fears and doubts and what-ifs and all the testimony we get from our 5 physical senses, everything that the ordinary mind, everything our five senses is telling us through the ordinary mind and trying to convince us that that's reality, and also the subconscious mind where all this stuff is stored. We have to transcend that. Everything we've experienced since we've been kids, everything we've been taught in schools, everything we've been taught in churches, and anything else, that's all there in the ordinary mind. Everything we see on television, everything we read is just stored in there. That subconscious doesn't say yes, no, whatever. It just says, okay, and kicks it back out into our conscious mind as a reality. We have to be able to discern the difference between the intellect, the conscious and the subconscious, and the transcendent, which is the Christ consciousness. And that Christ consciousness is home for us. That's where we've always been. And we're learning how to what? We're learning how to transcend. We're learning how to, what's the word? It just enlighten. Back home.
Be aware of who we are.
Bobby says, be aware of who we are. Now, the Beatitudes, here they all are, as they're found in the Bible. The first one is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. We covered that last time. They caught the scribes and the Pharisees, the religious leaders of Jesus' day, kept saying, they're trying always to box him in a corner because they didn't like him. He was destroying the Mosaic law. He was disrupting their whole belief pattern. And they said to him, where's this kingdom of heaven? Kingdom of God. And he had a lot of courage, as you know. He said, my friends, you are never going to find it because you're looking low here and low there. And he said, the kingdom of heaven is within. Now, that was a major transformation for me coming out of Methodism. And when I really delved into this, studying comparative religions, I had to have a transformation of consciousness. I had to know that there is no heaven out there or hell. It's this inner peace and harmony. We come from this functioning of knowingness from that level of silence. And that's basically the poor in spirit from the Aramaic into English basically simply means the humility of a child to receive this without trying to figure it all out. And that brings us into the next beatitude, which we covered tonight. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And so what I'd like to have you guys consider very seriously is print this out and then put it into your three-ring binder that you have so you can refer back to it often. So again, like I say, so we're always coming from the same base, because this thing of collective consciousness is powerful. Where two or three are gathered together in my name, in this Christ state of consciousness, there isn't. It's omnipotent. It's all powerful, and that's how we're supporting each other and asking others to come in as supportive of the same process. So now with that, if you will go back to the website and go back to Spiritual Insights again. On the Shakanasi website, and then if you go down to where it says Session 1 Discussion,
Except mine is grayed out. I can't see Session 1 Discussion. I can only see Session 2 Discussion. This is right.
Probably if you go back out and come back in.
No, Dean, Session 2 is, that's the only thing that's live right now.
Well, on my computer, when I go into Spiritual Insights and I scroll down, I have Session 1 Discussion.
Okay,
is yours highlighted in blue, Dean?
Pardon?
Is yours Session 1 highlighted in blue, the visualization and discussion?
Yes, it is.
Oh, ours is grayed out.
Okay. grayed out on the right, or is it on the left? I'm going down now on the left of what we just clicked into, and we got back now to the website, and now we're on Spiritual Insights website, a section of Chakranisi website, and then if you scroll down on the right, on the left, we have the forums and the discussions.
Okay.
You're talking about the forum right now, not the broadcast, correct?
Yes, the forum.
All right. So yeah, it's there's session 1 there. Yep, that's the forum.
Alexis, you got it?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
Are you with it? And Vlad?
Yeah, I keep putting you guys on mute. I'm there. Yep.
I didn't hear you, Vlad. You're there?
Yes, I'm there. Yeah, I said I mute my phone. Yes, I'm there. Uh-huh.
All right. Now, if you click on session 1,
Except my session 1 is grayed out. I can't click on anything in session 1.
He's talking about if you go to the left, Vlad, under the forum, where there's 3 topics.
Yeah. Yeah, session 1 discussion.
Yeah, under yes. If you click on it, it should open up, and then you'll have affirmations, a fall short. You'll have the threads.
Oh, I
He's
see
not
that.
talking about the weekly broadcast.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Bobby and Dean, I noticed from the last session too. Do you have can you increase the volume on when you speak, or on?
Yes, I can.
Okay, because that would help me out a great deal. Because Jill is straining to hear, and she's getting to be about as old as I am.
Okay. Is that helping any?
Let me hear it again.
Okay, I've got about as loud as I can bring it up.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. Now, let's before we get actually into this beatitude, is on the forum. The first one that came in was from Tim, where it says, "I'm hungry for the connection."
Yeah.
Click on that. See what comes up for you guys. You see Tim's comment? You see my comment?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, Tim asked the question here because we're going to move into, you see, the beatitude we're working with tonight is discerning the spontaneity of the Christ consciousness versus the repetition of the ordinary mind. And Tim asked the question as it related. He said, "How do I get rid of all this stuff that's come to me, the fears and the negativity and all that kind of stuff? What do I do?" And I went into a pretty lengthy, and I'm not going to spend much time with it, but I think you guys should spend a little time and read it. But I went into a lengthy response to that, of how it's a process. It goes back to the Bible, and I'm just going to review it briefly, but the Bible says, "Peace, be still, and know." Now, that is the most powerful way of doing it. The most powerful way is beginning to learn to meditate, where you block out all the other information, and you just be from that level of silence. But now, I will never forget, one person once saying to me, "Well, if I meditate and I'm blocking out all thoughts, my mind goes blank." Well, we know that. We know that's not the case. We enter into another state of consciousness. There's the waking state, the sleeping state, the dream state, there's a transcendent state, we're entering into that state of consciousness of being at one with. The mind is stilled, then we're home. We're in that level of the all knowledge. We're at that level of the Christ consciousness. And most times when we meditate, we don't even know we're there. But sometimes we know, we say, wow, that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you meditate, you say, wow, that went fast. Because you're there. Because when you're there, you're just there. That's the only way I know of, and it's a little bit like dyeing a piece of cloth. You put the cloth in dye, and it turns color, but then it fades after a while. So you put it back in the dye, and then it's color for a little while, and then it fades. And after you do it for a period of time, pretty soon it becomes color fast. And that's pretty much the way this is. This is not it's not a aha moment that is. It's a process of coming home, basically. Now, there are other ways, and that's why we have to share with one another. Because my dad, I talk about my dad a lot. But my dad, because he was a very successful businessman, but he had all kinds of pressures, from payroll, you name it all. And I know when it got pretty heavy, you know the story, briefly, but he'd get in the car. And many times I'd go with him as a young boy. And he'd through Minnesota in the fall, and the windows down, I remember so well, traveling through the countryside, but he'd sing to the top of his voice. Count your many blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. Now, what he was doing, he knew he had to break that mesmerism of the ordinary mind. He had to do something. And so he would count your many blessings, sing. And you go back, and everything seemed to have a way to take care of itself after that. What do? I have the same things. When things get heavy and discouraging or whatever, I have to have a means. I meditate, and I've been meditating for 30-some years now, but I also, on occasion, it gets pretty heavy. And sometimes when I say to Bobby, well, what if? And I know Bobby will say back to me, she said, don't even go there. And I say, you're right. But what I do is I have to break that mesmerism. What I have to do, and this is silly for me, but I go down to the Dairy Queen, as you guys know, and I get a blizzard. And then I go to the park in the park by the ocean, and I put in my CD. I play polka music, and I have my Dairy Queen, and I listen to that polka music, and I say, how can life get any better than this? But what I had to do is I had to break that hypnotic, mesmeric, because it is mesmeric. It is hypnotic, the ordinary mind, and we have to have some means of breaking that. Jesus said, the way he did it, he said, get thee behind me, Satan. And that's the only Satan there is. There is no devil running around with a pitchfork. But he said, get thee behind me, Satan. And so that was my answer to Tim. Now, with that, and I'm going to building this up to this beatitude, if you go back now, hit that little arrow and go back to where we were before, and then go to that first beatitude, which is above, I'm hungry for the connection.
I can't hear Dean. Yeah, Dean, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Let me know when you guys get there.
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm here.
Yep.
Okay, Vlad, Ron, Jill, Lexus, are we all there?
Yep.
Yep,
If
we're
you're
here.
not there, be sure. If you're not there, be sure and let us know so that we can work together here, so we get real comfortable with this whole process. Well, then click on the first beatitude. That should bring up another. Should bring up another form discussion. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep.
Yep.
So here's what I said. See, Tim started this forum conversation. He said, how do I get rid of all this chatter and all this fear and all this stuff? And so I endeavored to give him some kind of a little suggestion. And that's what this is all about, is to where we help each other. I hope you guys will all get in here and say, here's what I do, you know. So then I said right out, good morning, Tim, just to keep this forum moving, how would you relate the first beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, to my response to your initial form entry? And he responded, he said, well, everything and anything outside of the good is a product of negative perspectives inserted in my head when I was abducted by space aliens when I was but a small child. Well, now that's a pretty powerful statement. I chuckled when I read that, because most all of us, we come into this world, we're not born in sin, believe me. We come into this world perfect, but we get indoctrinated through all this stuff that's thrown at us. So he says, I must break the mesmeric tendencies of the ordinary mind, set negative thoughts aside, and replace them with something more empowering. I'm going to be very cognitive of that today and let you know what I observe. And that led right in the night to what I had intended to bring to you all through the Beatitude. So now if you will go out of this, now this is going to be a little tricky, but I think we can do it together. And you go back to that email that Tim sent us. And when you get back to that email that Tim sent us, you're going to see in blue Beatitude number 2.
Yep. Okay. I'm there.
Good, Alexis.
Yep, I'm there too.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Then if you click on Beatitude number 2, did it come up?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Ron, Vlad?
Yeah.
Vlad, are you there? Did you get it?
Oh, yeah. Please go ahead. Yes. If I'm not there, I'll give you a shout. Keep moving. Yep.
Okay, now, this I would appreciate, too, each week if you would print these out and put it in your 3-ring binder, because we'll keep referring back to the Beatitudes as the power of that sermon on the Mount. But now what I'd like to do, I'm not going to read it all because it's long, but I think you should read it. But I want to pick out the highlights here for you. And so I'm going to read the highlights. So if you go down to the, let's just start with the very beginning of it. As you see, it says, the Beatitude number 2, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted, which means discerning the spontaneity of the Christ consciousness versus the repetition of the ordinary mind. And now we kind of get a little feel for that together. That means that we have to learn that we have to discern the difference together in supporting one another between the intellect or the ordinary mind and the Christ consciousness of just being and just knowing and just intuitively feeling. Now, if you go down to the 3rd paragraph where it starts, Jesus thoroughly detested. Let me know when you get there.
Yep. I'm here.
Ron, Vlad?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to read this. You follow through with me, if you will. Jesus thoroughly detested the hypocrisy of all externalism and idolatry. He taught his students a very different method and practice of mourning. Now, this beatitude is, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And he lived it himself. He used the Bible verse found in Proverbs 23:7, quote, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, as his guide, and he demanded a change in consciousness of his followers. His statement of law, quote, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted, implies both a demand and a reward. We should ask ourselves, how do we really mourn? How shall we keep this beatitude? Next paragraph. Too often, this beatitude is interpreted as a passive or almost negative statement. Yet each beatitude is pure law without a negative element. Turning to the dictionary, we learn that the word mourn is closely related to the Latin word memor, which means mindful, heedful, or listening. Blessed are those who are awakened enough to listen deeply to the voice of truth within, reach that level of silence where we can really rely wholly upon the intuitive, powerful word, knowingness, to guide and govern each one of us. And that's what we share on our journal, and that's what we share and discuss on our forum. Let me read that again. Listen deeply to the voice of truth within. Reach that level of silence where we can rely wholly upon that intuitive knowingness to guide and govern. And then when we share that on the journal, there's no discussion, right, wrong, indifferent. It's just a total 100% support for what's unfolding for each of us. Powerful, effective collective consciousness. This is the true definition of this second beatitude. This is what that second beatitude is all about. And this is what Jesus was endeavoring to get across to his people, followers. Then, when Tim answered and said he felt like an alien that brought him some bad information in the journal, the rest of it, which I could spend time reading it, but I think it'd be better if you guys just read it individually. But the rest, I go into the whole story that Jesus gave to try to help his people understand the power of this beatitude. He used the story of the prodigal son, and how the prodigal son had everything. In other words, everything he was actually demonstrating and living in that Christ state of consciousness. And then he went out and was mesmerized to the world beliefs, and after a while came back home. And the entire story, which is a parable, but the entire story is very powerful in how you and I together can demonstrate this beatitude. And it all goes right back, and you'll see this. It goes right back to what Moses also understood this power of the collective consciousness, or the Christ consciousness. And Moses tried so hard to try to get his people to be able to discern the difference between the ordinary mind and the state of transcendent, or the Christ consciousness. And so he gave a lot of examples, but basically Moses did not accomplish what he endeavored to try to do, because he tried it through symbolism, he tried it through every type of thing he could think of. It wasn't until Joshua came on the scene, and Joshua had a different total approach, the approach that I feel we will work together, that brought them into the promised land, that will bring us and manifest our promised land, or our desires, or our visions that we're working together. But in the Bible, the very first one was, as you recall, they were in this Garden of Eden. Now, this Garden of Eden is functioning from this awareness that Jesus called the Christ consciousness, or the kingdom of heaven within, and just functioning from that level of being. But then the command, according to Moses, what he's doing with his folks, he said, now, don't eat of that tree of knowledge that's in the center of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is his kingdom of heaven within. It's perfection. Because he said if you eat of that tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, he didn't say you can't eat of knowledge, but he said of the knowledge of good and evil, the knowledge of dualism, sickness and health, poverty and wealth, etc., and etc. Because he said if you eat of that tree of knowledge of good and evil, you'll be banned from this Garden of Eden. And this is, of course, what is so powerful with these Beatitudes is again, helping us be strong enough together collectively in consciousness that we can stay focused in that essence of perfection and supportive of one another's visions, that we will watch that power, omnipotent power of God, which is the omnipotent power of infinite good, become realities and demonstrate for us. And what an impact, in my mind, what an impact that will be for others who will be witnessing and watching, because this is what everybody is searching for. The world is searching for true spirituality, for the essence of absolute love for one another. He asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment of all? And he said, love one another as I've loved you. So then if you go a little bit further, not the next paragraph and not the next paragraph, but about 4 paragraphs from there, you'll see another one that says, so when we learn from this beatitude,
Yes.
That's the way the paragraph starts.
Yep.
So when we learn from this beatitude that the word mourn simply means to effectively listen to that inner voice, in doing this, we learn to let divine love remove old, false landmarks of habits, beliefs, false arguments, whose clamor would try to make us believe that we cannot hear this inner voice. In Luke 15:11, Jesus' parable of the prodigal son sets forth the effect of wrong listening, and again the effect of humble, obedient listening. And so I'm sure you guys, as you read this, you'll enjoy the article and go into the forum, make comments that we can all work together with, knowing that the journaling is just absolute support of what's unfolding for each other. The forum is where we have an in-depth discussion, and like Tim said, how do I get rid of all this stuff? and that precipitates the discussion that we'll have together in reinforcing each other in the manifestation of whatever we're endeavoring to manifest together. And then, lastly, if you go back to the spiritual insight section of Chakronicity,
I'm here.
Yep.
okay,
Me too.
you guys beat me.
Yep.
Okay. If you go down to if you go back into session 1, and then you go down, you see affirmations fall short. Are you there?
Yep.
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 Okay, then if you could click on that one. You'll see a beautiful example that was brought there by B in response to Tim's question that he was working with. And again, I'm not going to spend time, but it'd be nice if you guys did and see. But Affirmations. Now, I just want to talk about this just a little bit. Moses was trying to bring slave-conscious people who'd been slaves for centuries, the Jewish people, the Egyptians. You know the story of Moses. Moses was raised as an Egyptian in the palace, but he accidentally killed one of the Egyptian guards that was persecuting one of the Jewish people, and he had to run for his life. And in his quiet time, he was questioning everything. What's my purpose in life? Why am I in this situation? And in his quiet time, it came to him that he should liberate the people from slavery. And now that was a huge, huge revelation that came to him in his quiet time. He said, "Why me? I'm not even eloquent of speech. I must be getting something wrong in my intuitive insights." But it continued to come to him that was his purpose in life. That's what he's supposed to do. And he said, and it came to him, and his brother was pretty good at talking. He said, "Take your brother with you." Well, then he said, "Well, if I go to these people and say, now I have a purpose, and my purpose is to liberate you from slavery into freedom," they're going to laugh at me. He said, what can I say? And he said, "Well, I can't say, well, I was out there in meditating, and it came to me, God talked to me and said that I'm supposed to liberate you from slavery." You know the story. Came to him, go and say that I am that I am is the name of God. I am that I am. Now we have to get a whole new concept together if we're going to, as we proceed here in the state of collective consciousness, because the power of our state of consciousness collectively is what's going to give this tremendous input. And the name of God came to Moses was I am that I am. In fact, God is if you trace that word God back, and guys can do that as well as anybody else. It's everything. There's nothing hidden anymore. It's all on Google, and we've got all the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we've got all kinds of transcripts now that are being uncovered from way back in the Sumerian culture, 2,000 years before Moses' time. God is not something external. There isn't a God out there. We're it, every one of us. And it all comes down to that power, I am that I am. And so he said to his people, now, you've got to start saying, I am free instead of I am a slave, because what you put behind the word I am is going to become a reality. Now, for most of us, we'd say that's crazy. How can I say I am free when you're a slave? How can I say I am wealthy when I don't know how to pay the next rent check? But that's the way it's done. We have to begin to realize, and this is the power of this collective consciousness, we have to begin to recognize that mind energy directs physical energy, and what we bring in consciousness is the most subtle energy there is, which creates that subtle energy to become a reality, which is the growth energy. Everything external is a hologram. It's not reality. It's just what we've accepted as reality from our state of consciousness. Well, this was tough for these people to say I am free when they were slaves. But he kept saying, now you've got to have it. It's an affirmation. Just keep saying it no matter what. At some point you'll probably grasp it to some degree. I am free. I am free. Now, when we do this, and I think you all got from Bobby's book or from the courses we've been through together, this thing of chemicalization. When we do this, the intellect does not give up without a little fight because it's been controlling our lives for so long. So we go through this little chemicalizing process, and sometimes that can be a little difficult, and that's again where we support each other. We support each other. Now we don't have to share with each other the problems we're having, because that perpetuates the problem. But we do say to each other, I'm going through a little difficult time, support me. Then we see you as totally manifesting that vision, because the vision is the reality. What we are today is the result of what we were thinking yesterday. Tomorrow is the result of what we're creating today. And so I am free. I am free. But in our support of one another, affirmations are good, and we share them. But then there comes a point in our enlightenment together, in our growth together, that the affirmation stops the process. Because then affirming something, it still means it hasn't happened. It still means it's out there someplace. And we're waiting for it to happen. And so at some point we have to go beyond an affirmation, and we just have to be what we are creating. And that B did a nice job of bringing that up in this forum. And here's where the absolute definition of prayer comes into effect. And I know Ron and Jill and you guys, you're working, and Vlad, you're working on healings. Prayer is not petitioning some power outside to do something for us. Prayer is the expression of gratitude for the fulfillment of the vision that we are creating, whether it's health or wealth or whatever, before it becomes manifest in the human living experience. And when we can recognize that, we express the gratitude, because once we've expressed it, I am wealthy, it's a reality if we can express gratitude for the fulfillment of it, even though it hasn't manifested yet in our lives. Now that's the power of collective consciousness. That's the power of supporting one another. That's the power that Jesus used, which performed miracles, but there are no miracles. They're just divinely natural events when we understand the principle, and those principles are contained within the Beatitudes.